On this screen behind me, you will see a UFC fighter who fought on UFC Vegas 114, Vallejos versus Emmett, on the left-hand side of the screen. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you will see a blank white box. That white box will be deleted, and a boom appears their opponent for their next fight. And so let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. Kevin Vallejos, the winner of the main event, with a big knockout. Who should he be fighting next? Boom, Yair Rodriguez versus Kevin Vallejos. That is the fight to make next, partially because everyone's booked up at featherweight at the moment. But Vallejos versus Yair, that would be an incredible strikers fight. Vallejos would absolutely flatline Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez has been ducking some of these tough matchups against young and up-and-comers. No more. Kevin Vallejos versus Yair Rodriguez. That's the fight to make. I know some people are saying Vallejos versus Gene Silva, but I want to save Vallejos versus Gene Silva for an opportunity for both these guys to fight for the belt. That was an incredible fight that we saw between the two of them on the Contender Series. And so, give me Kevin Vallejos versus Yair Rodriguez. This should be a big move up in the rankings for Vallejos, a big win opportunity, and propel himself potentially into that featherweight title picture. And on top of that, Vallejos is asking for this fight. Vallejos is saying, Yair Rodriguez and Noche UFC. That would be an incredible fight. I think that's the fight to make. Yair Rodriguez versus Kevin Vallejos. Let's book it, UFC. Get on the train. And so, moving onward, Josh Emmett. Who should Josh Emmett's next opponent be? Oh my God. Retirement. Josh Emmett, the 41-year-old. Holy crap, my layers aren't even working. I'm bringing him forward above the verses. And Josh Emmett, he has looked absolutely terrible in his recent performances. The 41-year-old, honestly, it felt like elderly abuse to watch Kevin Vallejos dismantle Josh Emmett. And I believe Josh Emmett, the 41-year-old, you've had a great career. Big wins over Calvin Kattar, got yourself into the title picture. We've seen some crazy knockouts, that flat line of Bryce Mitchell, where Bryce Mitchell was absolutely twitching. This guy is famous for his big overhand right, has a lot of power in his hands, but I just don't care to see a 41-year-old mix it up in the UFC anymore. For your sake, Josh Emmett, I want to see you retire. And so I'm going to apologize very briefly for that kind of switch up in audio and potentially the switch up in a little bit of adjustment on the screen. My microphone just died. I have no idea what happened, but we keep propelling forward anyways. And so moving on to the winner of the co-main event, Jillian Robertson. Who should Jillian Robertson be facing in her next UFC appearance? And so I know she asked for a title shot, and moving her one position closer to a title shot would be Yan Xiaonan. Yan Xiaonan has had incredible wins in her UFC career. We've seen incredible counter punches. But Yan Xiaonan, coming off of a huge loss to Zhang Weili, has lost to other wrestlers. She just lost to Verna Jandiroba. And so this is a very, very winnable matchup for someone like Jillian Robertson. Could take down Yan Xiaonan, potentially submit her, but also Yan Xiaonan has great hands. Yan Xiaonan could have potentially, come out with a big win over Jillian Robertson. And so a winnable fight for both of these women, an incredible matchup that the UFC kind of just has to make at this point. And so Jillian Robertson versus Yan Xiaonan. And moving onward, Charles the Inner G Johnson. My guy, I know I'm skipping over some of these fights that happened, but I don't really care to match up Jose Miguel Delgado. He needs to, fight some more unranked guys to kind of build himself up. And so Charles Johnson needs to be facing the baby freaking killer. I'm bringing Brandon Moreno forward. Brandon Moreno versus Charles Johnson. That's the fight to make. Charles Johnson has looked great in his UFC career, has had some big losses on that. We saw him lose to Alex Perez. So we know this is an opportunity for Brandon Moreno to potentially get back on track after that big loss to Loner Kavanaugh. And so Charles Johnson is getting an opportunity to move up in the rankings, continue building himself, because we've seen him have huge wins over Joshua Van, the champion, and huge wins over Loner Kavanaugh, who Brandon Moreno lost to. And so this would be a great fight, an absolutely wonderful scrap, and this is what I want to see out of the UFC flyweight division. And so the last matchup that we will make, Vitor Petrino. Give me Vitor Petrino versus the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. This fight would be an incredible fight to watch. Again, we saw Vitor Petrino against Stephen Asplit. It was kind of a battle of the body weights, right? And so this would be a wonderful opportunity to see kind of what does Derek Lewis have to offer against a guy like Vitor Petrino. We know that Derek Lewis can scrap it out, can knock out anyone. But Vitor Petrino, he went for a few takedowns against Stephen Aspel, looked pretty good on the feet. And we need to start moving Vitor Petrino up in the rankings. This will be a winnable fight for D. Lou, my guy, Derek Lewis, and another great fight for Vitor Petrino to have on his resume. And so, that is every fight to make after UFC Vegas 114, Emmett versus Vallejos. And let's get into the next segment, which is the UFC chopping block. Every fighter to get cut after UFC Vegas 114. Who are we cutting here? Let's jump right into it. You're going to see these two white boxes, and I'm going to delete. We are cutting Luan Lacerda. Luan Lacerda is 1-3 in the UFC, with his lone victory being a submission win over Simon Oliveira after losing to Hetero Sosa, after losing to Cody Stamann, a guy who you would think you should beat if you're going to be in the UFC at this point. Luan Lacerda, it is time to pack your bags. You have been cut from the UFC. And the next fighter behind me, Brad Tavares. I hate to do it to a UFC legend, but in his last 8 fights, Brad Tavares is 2-6. You know the UFC is paying Brad Tavares a hefty paycheck because the longer you've been in the UFC, the more they pay you. So Brad Tavares is getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he is not at that level anymore, continuously losing to guys. Honestly, if you beat Eric Anders, I would have kept him in here. But Brad Tavares coming off of a big loss to Eric Anders. He could maybe beat some middleweights at this time, but it's not worth keeping Brad Tavares on the roster. So Brad Tavares, if you have been cut from the UFC, let me know who you think should have been cut from the UFC. If you enjoy content just like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the matchups that we made after UFC Vegas 114. Let me know who you would have matched up. Again, check me out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, MMA Outlaw TV on all of them. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you're enjoying the content. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.